Norovirus causes gastroenteritis, which is inflammation of the stomach or intestines. Symptoms include vomiting and diarrhea, with or without nausea, and abdominal cramps. Low-grade fever can also develop. While norovirus infection typically causes an acute bout of gastroenteritis that resolves within days of the onset of symptoms, norovirus-induced disease can be much more severe and prolonged in specific risk groups. For example, infants and young children can develop more severe cases of gastroenteritis following norovirus infection, with symptoms lasting up to 6 weeks rather than the typical average of 3 days. Along with young children, norovirus is particularly nasty for the elderly due to already having a weak immunity. It can lead to severe dehydration, an increase in falls, and in extreme cases, it can even lead to death. A new study states that norovirus is responsible for 10 to 20% of cases of elders who go to the hospital with a stomach bug. In the older adults that are hospitalized, 10 to 15% of them will die. For the elderly, it's not just a stomach bug. The symptoms need to be taken seriously, as they can lead to failure of the heart, kidney problems, and chronic diarrhea and malnutrition. About 1 out of every 5 cases of acute gastroenteritis that leads to diarrhea and vomiting is caused by the norovirus. However, norovirus is a problem in both developed and developing countries. Every year, it is estimated to cost $60 billion worldwide due to healthcare costs and loss of productivity. Annually, there are about 685 million cases of norovirus globally. About 2 million of those cases are among children under the age of 5. Compared to the 685 million cases global, norovirus causes an estimation of 19 to 21 million cases of vomiting and diarrhea in the U.S. yearly. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, of those cases, between 56,000 and 71,000 lead to hospitalizations, and 570 to 800 cases end in death. Death due to norovirus is not very common and is statistically rare.
Norovirus is a well-described cause of epidemic gastroenteritis across a wide range of geographic regions worldwide, mostly in elderly and pediatric populations. Norovirus is sporadic as the outbreaks are seen occasionally. While the outbreaks can occur anytime during the year, they are more common during winter months, which is December to February for countries above equator and June to August for the countries below equator. In this graph published by the National Outbreak Reporting System, within 3 years of range, from 2009 to 2012, the prevalence of norovirus in the U.S. was highest in the month of January. One of the reasons for this virus being common in winter is because people tend to spend more time indoors within close proximity to one another, which provides high chance of transmission. Oral route is the main portal of entry for norovirus. This virus enters into the human body through GI tract. Fecal-oral route is the main mode of transmission. Norovirus spreads when a person gets fecal or vomit matters from an infected person in their mouth. There are several causes of fecal-oral transmission of norovirus. They include contamination of food, contamination of water, contamination of surface or fomites, and physical contact. Food can get contaminated with norovirus in many ways. It includes when an infected person touches food with their bare hands that have fecal or vomit particles on them, when food is placed on a surface or counter that has fecal or vomit particles on it, when aerosolized vomit particles dissolves in the air and lands on food. When food is grown or harvested with contaminated water, for example, oysters harvested from contaminated water, or fruits or vegetables irrigated with contaminated water in the fields. Recreational or drinking water can get contaminated with norovirus and can lead to illness. This can happen at the source, such as when septic tanks leak into a well, when an infected person defecates or vomits in the water. Norovirus can spread through sick people and contaminated surfaces in many ways, including when an infected person touches the surface with bare hands that have fecal or vomit particles on them, when an infected person vomits or has diarrhea that splatters onto the surfaces, when food, water, or objects that are contaminated with norovirus are placed on surfaces, when taking care of an infected person and getting in contact with their fecal or vomit particles, shaking hands of an infected person that have fecal or vomit particles on them, or shaking hands of a healthy person but have fecal or vomit particles on their hand. These viruses are very contagious and spread in many settings, such as restaurants, hospitals, schools, care homes, and ship cruises. The main reason behind this is that people tend to spend more time within close proximity with each other, and there is a high chance of transmission with one another. Humans are the natural reservoir for norovirus. These viruses are shed in human feces and vomit, and that's how they leave the body of infected hosts.
Norovirus is a single-strand positive RNA virus. The virus enters the cell via attachment. Capsid proteins on the virus match to specific receptors on the host's cellular surface. Once attached, virons enter the cell via endocytosis. The cell uses RNA-dependent RNA polymerase to transcribe the positive RNA to negative RNA. Once again, RDRP is used to transcribe the negative RNA into positive RNA, and the positive RNA is made many times. As you can see in the second picture, the ribosomes synthesize the viral proteins, which then become assembled inside the host cell to make new viruses. Enzymes disrupt the host cell membranes or cell wall, and the new virons are able to lysis out of the cell, causing the cell to burst and new viruses attach to a new host cell, and the process begins all over again.
Norovirus has had many names over the years. Ross-killed illness, winter vomiting bug or disease, viral gastroenteritis, Norwalk virus, Norwalk-like virus, small round structured virus, and snow mountain virus. The name winter vomiting bug came from a pediatrician named Dr. John Zahorsky in 1929. A forefather of early disease prevention, Dr. Z taught good sanitation techniques during birth and infant care. He wrote his journal about children developing sporadic cases of vomiting and diarrhea, and each year the cases happened between the months of November and May. In 1968, a winter vomiting sickness outbreak occurred in a Norwalk, Ohio elementary school. This outbreak led to the renaming of it to Norwalk virus. In 1972, a scientist named Albert Z. Kapikian successfully identified the virus under an electron microscope from stool samples saved from the Norwalk outbreak. In 2002, the name norovirus was approved by the International Committee on Taxonomy of Viruses after an extensive study was done in the 1990s, which determined that Norwalk was one of a large group of related human viruses. Since the first reported outbreak in 1968, there have been quite a few reported. Some notable ones include the cruise ship Queen Elizabeth II in 2007, where 276 passengers and 28 crew were infected by the norovirus. Another was in 2004, the cruise ship Island Princess of Princess Cruises had 375 passengers and 50 crew members sickened by the disease. Even Queen Elizabeth herself was hospitalized from gastroenteritis caused by norovirus at one time. But the largest recorded outbreak of a foodborne illness happened in 2012 in Germany. 11,000 people were reported by over 370 different institutions that included both hospitals and schools to be sickened by norovirus. The outbreak was ultimately blamed on contaminated frozen strawberries that had been imported from China. There are now regulations in place by the European Union which requires frozen strawberries to be tested for norovirus before shipment. Most people think of norovirus as a cruise ship virus because we're always hearing about outbreaks on ships, when in fact only about 1% of outbreaks occur on cruise ships. More outbreaks occur in school and childcare settings and universities, and still more reported in restaurants and catered events. But the most commonly reported setting for norovirus outbreaks in the U.S. are healthcare facilities and hospitals. Over half of all norovirus outbreaks reported in the U.S. are from nursing homes. Outbreaks in these settings can last months due to close quarters, contact, and weakened immune systems, and can be caused by infected visitors, staff, patients, or contaminated food. So really, norovirus's nickname should be the nursing home virus.
According to the CDC, there unfortunately is no specific medication to treat norovirus, nor is there a vaccine. However, the CDC recommends if you contract norovirus to drink plenty of fluids to replace the fluids lost in vomit and diarrhea. Dehydration can lead to another set of problems, so it's important to make sure that you or the individual with norovirus is well hydrated. There are no medications for norovirus because, as we have learned in class, antibiotics target bacteria, not viruses. According to the CDC, to better protect yourself and others is to wash your hands. Wash your hands like you just spilled glitter everywhere, and your mom will be home in 5 minutes. Norovirus is fairly heat resistant, so it's important to cook foods to the right temperature. As we have learned in class, cleaning and disinfecting surfaces is another great preventative tool. Using bleach and allowing to sit on surfaces to penetrate the virus will decrease the spread. Another great preventative tool is to wash your laundry that could be contaminated with bodily fluids like vomit or feces. To summarize, the CDC recommends 5 tips to stop norovirus from spreading. Practice proper hand hygiene, cook foods thoroughly, don't prepare food when sick, clean and disinfect surfaces, and wash laundry thoroughly that could be contaminated.